Spring Cloud Config. Hi guys, today we're going to learn Spring Cloud Config. First, let's check the meaning of this Spring Cloud Config in the documentation. Okay, let's go to Spring Portal. As per the documentation, Spring Cloud Config provides server-side and client-side support for externalized configuration in a distributed system. With the config server, we have a central place to manage external properties for applications across all environments. Okay, I think the easiest way to understand this is to show you an example. Let's start first with the server uh, Spring Cloud config server. Okay, let me show you an example. First, I already created the microservices for this Spring Cloud config server. So first, let me show you the dependency, the library that we need. Actually, for the server side, we need two dependencies. One is the Spring Cloud config server, and the other one is the SpringBoot starter actuator. This one that is not necessary. We basically only need these two libraries. Okay. Then for the configuration, we need to, of course, we need to assign a server port. In this demo, I will use 8888. Then we need to we need to configure this URI, the server JIT URI. Okay, so in my case, I will show you. Let me log into my GitHub. So how I get this URL, I will show it to you. So basically, this is the the easiest to get this URL. You first go to your repository. For example, here I have this project. Then inside my project, I have some repository here. So let me go to, I have here I have a sample repository here. This is under hold on. So yeah, I think this is another project from another project. Okay, so basically we need to go to our repository. So in my case, I have this repository. Okay, then inside this repository, I created an application.properties. So as you can see here, this is the content about my application properties. So to get this URL, this HTTPS, you just need to copy it from this repository. Just click, yeah. So basically, you just copy it from the browser. So here, let's copy it. Okay. Actually, paste it. All right. I think you don't need to copy the whole URL. You just need to copy until the name of the repository, which is until here. You can drop this portion. Okay. So let's go back again. Yeah. So what you do, you click this repository name. Then when you see the application properties, you just copy from here. Okay, copy. Let's press it. All right, so it's the same, right? Then after configuring the Spring Cloud config server JIT URI, you also need to expose the endpoints, the actuator. As you can see here, we include also the actuator, starter actuator. We need to expose the endpoints, actuator endpoints, for us to access the the server properties, okay, or configuration. Okay, so to test this, let's run the, and also before I forgot, we also need to enable the config server, so we need to use this annotation. So let me wrap up. First, we need this to, in our form, we need to add two dependencies. One is Spring Cloud config server. The second one is the Spring Boot starter actuator. Then we need to configure in application properties the server port. This Spring Cloud config server git URI. We get this URL from our GitHub. This is the repository name. This is normally the name, your username, and of course the GitHub URL. Okay, so we also need to configure this management endpoints web exposure, include to expose the endpoints in this library. Okay, why do we need to do this? Because it's required for us to be able to access the server configuration. Okay, let's run it. We can test this. Okay, let's run the server. Let's check if we can see the contents of this configuration which we put in our GitHub. In our application properties, we only have one key here. So we have here hello world part 11. Okay, so to test it, let's try our server if we can test it. So curl http localhost, the port of our server is 888. Then client name, let's say client, any name actually, because this is for testing purpose. Client A, then profile, let's say dev, any name also, dev1. So by hitting this endpoint, we can test the server. We should be able to see this configuration. Okay, let's try it. All right, as you can see, it's very difficult to, let's format it. JSON TP. All right, so you can easily see. As you can see, this is the server returned this JSON to us. So basically, what we need here in the client is this only, this property. Okay. So now let's create the since our server, our Spring Cloud config server is working already, it's up and running. We can let me show you the client, the config client, because in the client we will be using this. Okay, so the property that we need is test.key. All right, so let me show you my code in the client. For the client, we basically need dependency also, two dependency also. One is this one, Spring Cloud starter config. The other one is Spring Boot starter actuator. In this library, we only need the refresh endpoint. Okay, so that we don't need to restart whenever we change this, the configuration in our GitHub. Okay, any changes in here, we don't need to restart our microservice or the client microservice. We just need to hit the endpoint, the refresh endpoint, and yeah, the updated configuration will reflect in our client. Okay, so yeah, basically we need this Spring Cloud starter config and Spring Boot starter actuator for the refresh endpoint. This starter web is because we want to hit this endpoint. We want to test it, so we need to expose a we need to create an endpoint to expose the property that we get from the server. Okay, so in this case, in our GitHub, we use test.key. That's why in our client we use test.key. So, okay, so whatever we have here, the client will pull the value of this key. All right. So yeah, first we add this dependency, Spring Cloud starter config dependency, and Spring Boot starter actuator. This is a Spring Cloud config. Actually, it requires this Spring Cloud dependency. So we need to add this also. All right. Okay, then after adding the dependencies, we configure. This is the client. Okay, we have to set the Spring config import. So we need to, in this config server, we need to put the URL of our Spring Cloud config server, which is this one. Yeah. As you can see here, we use port 888, right? So since it's running in our local, so we use localhost, right? So localhost, then the port of our server. So we basically point our client to our Spring Cloud config server. Okay, then again, we use this. We need to expose also this endpoint. This endpoint is from this library, from this actuator. Okay, we need to expose this so that when we hit the endpoint later, we don't need to restart the client. We can get the up-to-date configuration without restarting this client. All right. Then after configuring this, okay, then we can actually use the configuration properties. Like in our example, we only have one test key. This test key is defined in our configuration, our application properties in the GitHub, this one. All right. So let me test this. Let me run this. Oh, it's running already. Let's me restart it first. So okay, let's use the curl. So http localhost. For the client, we use this is our client. For the client, we use the default port, which is 8080. Since we did not specify the, okay, it's not yet running. The one I ran just now is the server. This is server. Okay, so the server is running now. Let me run the client. The client is running also. Since we did not specify the server port here, by default the server is 8080. Okay, so this is the client. Let's hit the client endpoint. So in our client, we have one endpoint, which is this one, test. All right. So we expect hello, this is string, then whatever the value of this test key. This test key we retrieve from our application, from our configuration, from this GitHub. Okay, so let's try to hit this 8080, then the name of the endpoint, which is test. So we expect hello, then the value of this, which is hello world part 11. Okay, let's me hit that point. All right, so let's say I want to change this. I will change this. Okay, we will not we can get the new value or the updated value. Let's say, hey dude, this is the new value. Right, let's save this. All right, so when we hit the client, course we will get the old value, which is hello world part 11, right? But if we want, let's say uh, we want to get the latest, this one, the latest value, we need to hit the refresh endpoint. This is provided by our library, the one I showed you earlier, this one. This is the reason why we need to add this in the client, because of the refresh endpoint. And take note, we cannot use this. This will not work without specifying this annotation. We also need to add this annotation, the fresh scope. All right. So let me hit this. Oh, because this endpoint actuator refresh endpoint is post, so we need to use post. Okay. All right. So now we can get now the latest configuration. Let me hit again. So now instead of getting this old value, we should be getting the latest value, which is this one. Okay, let me run it again. All right. See, we're getting the latest value without restarting the client. Again, let me highlight to you, for the client, for this refresh endpoint to work, we have to take note. First, we need to add this repository, this dependency rather. Second, we need to configure this refresh. Third, we need to add this annotation, this refresh scope annotation. These are the three things that we have to add, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so I think that's all, guys. I hope you learn something important again today, the Spring Cloud config, both the server and the client. Okay, thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you again next time.